real quick. So I think that every single person in the world who's ever watched one play of football can tell you that it looks dangerous. It doesn't take an overly educated opinion, an overly, you know, uh, controversial opinion to say, hey, this looks dangerous. However, I think that on top of that, right, you also have a different class of people who have cognitive dissonance, and then you have a class of people who it's so violent that it turns them off, right? Like a Chris Borland is a perfect example. I'm sure that Chris Borland, like people that were around him in his inner circle, they probably struggled watching what he was going through. Him retiring was an easy call for himself, and it's unfortunate that that was his reality because he was obviously a very talented player, but that's what these guys are dealing with and going through. And I do think that they a lot of these guys, right, active NFL players, they think that it's good for them to participate in this new media stuff, both running podcasts and being on podcasts and all that, because they think that it adds to their relatability and their likability and all these things. At the end of the day, it helps the bottom line. So no agent is going to tell you not to do a podcast. From a money standpoint. No, like a team might tell you not to say certain stuff, but like you're making, you're making money. And so and they know that, and you kind of I think that that's a part of the contract in a lot of ways. Like you're going to use your celebrity in the way that you see fit, and for a lot of dudes that like to ATV race and like to do like a lot of dangerous things, this is a way to use their celebrity that's normally not physically dangerous. However, I think that after a while, they have oversaturated their own market, and it has desensitized people to what we were so close to having a breakthrough around with concussion. I don't think that the NFL, what I specifically remember when we were in high school, we were 17, 16 maybe. And we had just watched a crazy game. And it was a bunch of dudes in the room who love football. We're all big football fans. A bunch of us were on the team. But we were like, and this is around the time concussion came out because I think that was 2015 or something. And somebody had referenced it in the room, and we were like, the NFL in its current iteration is not going to exist in 15 years. Now that was 2015, 2016, 2017. So this is us talking about the NFL in 2025 to 2030 to 2035. And in 2025, 2026, like the NFL is different than it was in 2015, right? Like as far as like blindside blocks, you have to show your numbers, right? You can't block behind the play. Uh, like there's a quicker whistle on like quarterbacks getting down, like targeting, like there's all these things that show guardian caps, all these things that show signs that the game is trending in a different direction, that it's becoming a different kind of football game. But at the same time, I was kind of making that argument even back then that that's like the NFL can't minimize the violence that football invites. The amount of people that are professional football players, have been professional football players, have been high school, D1, D2, D3, JUCO. The amount of dudes that go out there and you ask them what they like about football, and they tell you violence, they talk about imposing their will and all of this wild stuff, right? All these virtue signaling type comments. Um, it really does, like, it really does make you wonder, does it matter what you put what clothes you have on these gladiators, these fighters? Like, don't get me wrong, like people that suit up and play professional football week in and week out, whether it's the NFL, the UFL, CFL, whatever, like they are putting themselves through a lot. But again, I think that through like think about how they go on podcasts. Our kid went on a podcast and he was like, it's playing in a game is like getting in multiple car crashes a week. Like that's actually something that was basically proven in concussion. But we're getting this firsthand. This is a primary source. This is someone who's playing football, a very rough and tough position at tight end, really a blocking primary tight end, even though everyone thinks he's like this receiving guru. I mean, it says a lot that McBride, Bowers, Gronk, Kelsey, all these other guys have out received Kittle. He's a blocking tight end. He went to Iowa. He's a blocking tight end. And he said that, and that didn't lead to anything different happening in the game. Does that make sense? Right? Nothing different happened in the game of football because he went on a podcast and said that. If anything, the average fan who again is in that tier of people who is a little bit delusional, who doesn't really understand what's going on. Now they're gonna spitball that fact to someone else. Did you know that getting in playing a football game is like getting in bunch of car crashes and then playing again, right? That's not gonna contribute to tangible change in like the aftermath of a lot of these players' lives, right? At the end of the day, if the NFL does not acknowledge CTE and its direct correlation to the football players and its direct correlation to a lot of the activities that happen in a lot of these guys post career lives, or these guys' lives getting cut short well before 40, well before 45, well before 35, then they don't have to be liable financially. And like that makes me think about a guy like Mike Evans. So that was a kind of a long-winded-ish intro, all of which I think is relevant context to seeing the Buccaneers game a couple nights ago or a couple weeks ago, because I think it was Buccaneers Falcons or something like that. And I was literally like sitting here watching, I was recording, and he catches a ball, or he gets thrown a ball by Baker Mayfield, goes up to get it, gets clipped, flips over, falls on his neck, like right here, literally right here, crunches his neck. This is a guy who's fresh off of a vertebrae injury. Okay. So wrestling is a perfect example, right? You turn on the TV, you watch wrestling, there is risk, but a lot of it is calculated risk. That's the reason that there's so few, you know, on screen, like documented wrestling related um stoppage based things. Like you can watch, like we were kids, we were watching Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb, and they didn't turn the TV off. You know what I'm saying? Now wrestling has changed a lot. Wrestling in the 80s and 90s, I mean, there was a dude who fell out of the sky and died, and then they scooped him off the mat and they just finished the event. It was before the event, they just finished the event, right? So wrestling has changed a ton, a ton, a ton. But at the same time, there's so much calculated risk versus a sport like the NFL or even a sport like hockey, right? Like there's so much that's up to other people. There was a guy who got the rollerblade through the neck and he died, and then the other dude got prosecuted. I mean, duh, like yes, manslaughter. You killed him. You killed a guy. But then it's like, what is the league at fault at any point? Is the league have culpability? The answer is yes. So you have Mike Evans going up to get this ball. He gets flipped over, crunches his neck, vertebrae injury, and and it's like it's his spine. It's his. I mean, he can easily be paralyzed, broken back, so nothing to play with. And Kirk Herbstreit, who was a terrible announcer, by the way, terrible. He kind of he starts to bring it up, you know, and he's talking about the reactions of the fellow players. He's like, you can look at his fellow players, right? And the NFL made a decision with Damar Hamlin to stop doing that. After Damar Hamlin, they were like, we're not going to put no more spotlight on other players while people are going through these drastic things. And I would like to think that they did that for a moral reason, but they really did it because they were like, the magic is gonna die. If these people watch this gladiator go down and the other gladiators are scared to go back and dance, then the magic dies. And with Hamlin, like he legitimately, I mean, his heart stopped. Like he legitimately um could have lost his life that day. And he's kind of almost like, I don't want to say naive, but he in one sense seems overzealous to be a part of the machine. Like he seems like proud to be there, their poster boy. But on the other hand, you need a job, and these guys have, the way that we treat athletes in society. I mean, you grow up your whole life and you're just like, I'm the guy, I'm the guy, I'm the girl, I'm the whoever, like, and then you have ego death, and a lot of these NFL players, they experience ego death alongside having drastic brain injuries, alongside substance abuse, alongside anything else you can name. So it's wild that this is what a lot of these guys go through. But on a Thursday night game brought to you by Amazon, Mike Evans falls down. Kirk Herbstreit tries to bring up, what's going on with these reactions. Like I said, I believe the NFL made a conscious decision with all of the networks that broadcast them to move the attention off of the other players when these kinds of things happen, and to get the show on the road, to stall in the booth, to throw on a commercial, whatever they can do. Think about when Tua went into the fencing position, right? They don't show as soon as Tua get hit even a little bit, they flip in the camera nowadays. They don't even want you to think about it, okay? Because the magic has to be there. So it's really unfortunate, but my Al Michaels pivots to talking about the uniform, and then Kirk Herbstreit nods, and then he does a finish gesture. He nodded, like he was getting emotional, and then he started nodding, and then he was like, like kind of like I'm finished, like I'm done, like I'm sorry that I clearly stepped out of bounds. Why is that stepping out of bounds? They continue to talk about Mike Evans and his return to injury and neglecting him, and they put the camera on him while he was writhing in pain on the sideline, which is again like it's calculated, right? Like they're not going to put the camera on him during other moments, but if they feel like someone's going to come back in the game, they often will put the camera like right on their face. Um, yeah, I mean, and to a lot of guys who have in the past almost abuse the fact that they are being recorded all the time, have made the NFL weary of things like this. Think about Earl Thomas getting injured. The camera's all on Earl, and he flips. He just throws the bird up, right? Think about Antonio Brown just quitting in the middle of the game in New York. I think it was like Jets Buccaneers. I think that game was in New York. Like that's not a small market. There's a lot of people watching that product. Okay. Um, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on Mike Evans and the NFL and this whole thing behind the iteration of the NFL that we currently know. Like how much longer is it going to last? In my opinion, not 10 years. I think there's a lot of good that the game of football can teach us, but I just don't know if NFL football is gonna last for 10 more years. I just don't.